Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Let the Journey Begin. This week, I am your host, Alex Meschi, and filling in for the wonderful Hillary Roberts, we have Ryan Dennis, our producer.
I'm back. It's been a couple months now, but it's fun to be back here.
Yeah, it's been a little while. For those of you just tuning in, if you haven't seen our episodes before, Ryan's the guy that's behind the computer. He does all of our editing, our video, our uploading, writes the captions, basically runs this whole show and provides us a nice opportunity where we just get to show up, do the easy work, and go home while he has to break his back and fingers on the computer.
Yeah, more probably the fingers instead of the back, but it's fun doing it in behind the scenes. I like being the behind the scenes guy.
It's definitely fun. I mean, I never thought I would be hosting this podcast as much as I have been, which has been a nice change of pace, getting out of from the behind the desk, doing the paperwork and stuff like that. But for those of you also that don't know Ryan, he is our official bet spotter for sports betting. If you get any tips from him, all we ask is that 20% of your winnings come to us in the form of a donation, please, and thank you.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, a couple weeks ago, the Braves pulled off a World Series win against the Astros. And, you and I are big baseball fans, and I know I've found out over the last couple months, over the last couple years, you're a big Braves fan. How did that call come about, and how did it feel to finally get a World Series again?
It was funny. The first thing I'll mention that cracked me up was the fact that after the Braves had won, like literally the final out, games clinched, I got about at least 70 text messages from people. A good 80% I don't even talk to on a regular basis, sending me congratulations like as if I did something. All I did was...
We did it!
Yeah, right? Congratulations. But to answer the question of how did I become a Braves fan, so it started with me, growing up in the 90s. During the 90s, there was
that nasty pitching staff they had back in the day.
The nasty pitching staff. I was playing third base in Little League, so you had Chipper Jones. It was always cool the fact that he was a switch hitter, and to this date, he's arguably one of the best next to Mickey Mantle. And then you had Andrew Jones and a bunch of other guys like JT Snow, Andres Galarraga a little later on, and I don't want to say I jumped on the bandwagon per se, but they were a very,
popular team at the time.
They were a popular team. They were doing well. In '96, we hosted the Olympics here in Atlanta, Georgia. So there was a lot of buzz around the city too. And, they won the World Series in '95. But I would say, thinking back, and I didn't really consider this until I saw the stat that the last time the Braves had gone to the World Series was '99. The last baseball video game I've ever owned was on PlayStation. It was MLB 99. And I used to love playing as the Braves because they were the stacked team and just crushed everybody except the Yankees usually. But that's pretty much where it stemmed from. But to your point, the pitching dynasty, Maddox, Smoltz, Glavine, John Rocker, we'll throw him in there for a little bit, for good taste. But that really concreted. They were just popular. They were good.
You want to do the contrarian thing. You didn't want to be an Angel or Dodger fan growing up out here?
Well, to be honest, the Angels sucked.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until the early 2000s that they actually did something.
Right.
And even to this day with Mike Trout and all the other money that they spent on Pujols and this and that. And not to mention, I'm just personally not a fan of the American League.
Fair enough.
I like the National League. I figure, especially being a pitcher, if you're going to throw a 100-mile-an-hour rock at somebody and you can potentially hit them in the head, you should go and take your bat and, have the same return opportunity because that's how the game tends to, judge itself and sort itself out. So that's how I became a Braves fan. And to my point, it was just funny that I felt as if I contributed to the World Series win. I was definitely smack talking at the local Dave & Buster's across the street from my house because there were a bunch of Dodger jerseys in there. And I just roll in with a Chipper Jones jersey and everybody's looking at me.
Well, I think all the Dodger fans, even as much talk as they might have gotten, I'm sure they were happy to see the Braves win it rather than the Astros. So
I'm pretty sure, and it was funny because I saw a meme. It's like Braves fans during this World Series, and it showed the entire map of the U.S. that was for the Braves, except for the city of Houston.
Exactly.
Right. So everybody wanted them to lose after the whole cheating scandal, and I totally get that. For me, I wouldn't say a bummer that we had to play the Astros and that brought that like negativity.
Yeah.
But, for them to lose the All-Star game over, whatever you want to call it, to have that vindication of bringing the World Series trophy home, to me, I think is the ultimate payback.
Well, it was pretty cool. At least for my own sake, as somebody who just hates the Dallas Cowboys. I'm just hoping it doesn't mean the 90s good teams are going to start winning titles again. So hopefully it's just a one-off with the Braves. But otherwise,
that's too funny.
Congratulations to the Braves.
Yes, thank you.
You did it.
So last week we had an amazing guest. His name was Fausto. If you didn't catch that episode, please catch it. It was great. He provided a lot of insight and awareness, but he brought a buddy with him. And I had to hit him up and be like, hey, I want you to come back because he had a very interesting story. He came from Hawaii. He's been here for a few years, doing great things in the community here locally in Orange County. So I'd like to introduce a good buddy of mine, Alika.
What's up, guys? Thank you guys for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for coming back and being a part of this. And hopefully what you saw last week watching Fausto do it gave you the confidence that you'd crush this one out of the park.
Yeah, I don't really, in the beginning of my recovery journey, I would always plan out what I'm going to say because I was so afraid of what people thought of me. Being in business, I've been an entrepreneur a long time, so I had to do a lot of public speaking. So I was taught by successful people to make sure you got your notebook, get your bullet points in case you lose your train of thought, go back to it. Oh, that's what it was. Then I got into recovery. I was doing the same thing. And then this guy told me, hey, bro, by doing that, you ever think that you'll get in the way of what God wants you to say? I was like, oh, wow. I was like, I stopped doing it from that day forward, but it was ingrained in me for 16 years. I was doing that. So it was always like, boom, boom, have this, so.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I'm sure Jason's going to hear it, but that's something that him and I, and mind you, I've known this guy since preschool, right? When he was doing presentations and awards and events, I'd help him, compose his speech and get his bullet points together. And then one day I go, why don't you just shoot from the hip? Just see how it is. And he did it. And he goes, I don't even know what happened. It was like the movie Old School where Will Ferrell's during the debate thing. And he's like, I don't even know what happened. I just blacked out. Yeah, and Jason said, he's like, I just let God speak through me.
Yeah.
And when you are invested and it is not just a part of your routine, but it becomes your passion, I think it really opens that door to channel, a higher power, whether it's God, someone spiritual, Buddha, whoever you look up to, even a mentor, right? Mm-hmm. You can kind of have that channel. So that's super cool of you to say that. And, it's something that Jason and I have totally believed in. And that was at the beginning of your recovery journey, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about before that.
Okay.
So where did things start with you?
Okay, well, I'm from the Big Island of Hawaii. I grew
beautiful
up
there.
Yeah, bro. Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, I went there with my wife for the honeymoon, and we were talking last week about how it's beautiful, and then it also looks like you're on the surface of the moon when you're near the water as well.
Yeah. I remember you telling me when you guys were on the plane, you guys was like, "Why are we leaving?"
Exactly.
But no, it's a beautiful town. I grew up in. It's called Waimea. It's very small. Like you blink your eyes, you miss the whole town. But I grew up with my mom and my dad, so I don't have this excuse, this reason, or this why or whatever like some people do. Like I had a lot of structure. My mom wasn't an alcoholic. My dad wasn't. I grew up really good. I had a lot of love. I played every sport you can think of. I had a really good childhood. I had Christmas presents under the tree every year. So I cannot blame my parents, my upbringing and things like that on what happened to me in getting into addiction. But it was, I was about 13. Yeah, I was 13 years old. The first time I drank, the first time I got drunk, the first time I threw up, and the first time I blacked out. I was 13. Yeah, I was 13. No, not all at the same time. Yeah. Oh, wow. But when I was 13.
You scared me. I was like, whoa.
That's a rough night.
So just to cut you off real quick. So you were 13. Let me ask you just preceding all this, what did you want to be when you grew up, growing up in Hawaii?
That's a great question, bro. I love when people ask me this question because I don't know how much people you guys have asked this question to, but I'm not sure if you guys heard this one before. Ever since I was a little kid, this is something I always knew that I know. A lot of people, they want to be firefighters. They want to be policemen. They want to be pro athletes. What I wanted to be, bro, I wanted to be a husband and a father. I knew that from a young age. I had a huge problem though. I went into this disease of addiction right about 19 years old. And what it stems from is selfishness and self-centeredness. I found out, it took me 20 years to figure it out, but I found out women, they don't like it when you only think about yourself. They don't really like that.
That's a long lesson to learn.
Yeah. I learned the hard way, man. But I had a good childhood, but when I say I crossed that line into full-blown drug addict, alcoholic, the disease of addiction, prior to that, I just had a substance abuse problem. So when I got into recovery, looking back, that's about the age I thought, I was right around there where when I thought about it, every time I drank, every time I used drugs, like once I started, I couldn't stop. However, the people I surrounded myself with, they could party like me or harder. So, it was normal. It was normal. Nothing was wrong with it. Like staying up for 2 days, like that's normal. Everybody does this, right? It was weird when wasn't necessarily a friend, but maybe like a friend of a friend would come and hang out with us and party or something. And then they'll go, oh, it's 11 o'clock. I got to go home. I work tomorrow. That was not normal to us. I was like, what? Okay, go ahead, bro. More for us, more drugs for us. Then, that wasn't normal to me because I grew up, I surrounded myself with people that could drink like me, could use drugs like me. And, typically this is what I've learned in recovery, that people drink and use essentially for the effect that it produces. However, when I thought really hard, that wasn't the case for me in the very beginning because I didn't know what it felt like. I didn't know what it felt like to be drunk or to be high. Initially, for me, what it was I wanted to be part of, I wanted to be accepted, I wanted to be cool, I wanted to be one of the boys. I grew up with a lot of my older cousins. I come from a humongous family. So on my dad's side of the family alone, I have over 2,000 family members. That's just my dad's side.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I come from a big family.
To say the least. I thought I had a big family. My dad's side's like 300 deep. And I was like, man, this is a huge family. Yeah,
Holy
2,000?
Yeah. Over
You guys have
2,000.
your own village.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And basically your usage stemmed from trying to fit in. Similar to how, granted, I don't think you got into a gang, but that's how people get involved with gangs. It's trying to find somewhere to fit in, somewhere where you're accepted. Well, the people that are accepting you do this, so now you do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because all of my cousins and their friends, I looked up to them. I idolized them. I wanted to be like them. I dressed like them. I cut my hair like them. I dyed my hair like them. I surfed everywhere they surfed. I drank what they drank. I did the drugs they did. Because I had a huge problem though. All of my cousins, everybody I surrounded myself with, they're all extroverts, all of them. They don't need drugs and alcohol to be social. I had a huge problem. Naturally, I'm introverted. Still to this day, I'm like that. But anything to do with recovery, I'm extrovert, like on steroids, So when the first time I drank, I felt like I was accepted. I felt loved. I felt cared for. My cousins, they never, and their friends, they didn't need to do this. But you know how when you got the older cool kids, typically they kind of just get out of here, you little pest. They didn't really want to hang out with you. They embraced me. They oh bro, you my cousins' friends would call me. They wouldn't call my cousins, they would call me, hey bro, what you doing today? The waves is up. You're like, go surf. I'm like, yeah. You're like, oh yeah, they're calling me, And so that's how it started for me. Just wanting to be, I bought this lie, bro. I bought this huge lie that the world tells me, that the world tells itself, really. And it kind of sounds like this. You gotta look a certain way, you gotta dress a certain way, you gotta have a certain amount of money, a certain amount of followers, you gotta have the right amount of tattoos, your muscles gotta be a certain size, you gotta have the big gold chain, the big truck, or whatever it is, the nice car, the flashy things, you gotta have a lot of money, you gotta have a lot of pride, you gotta have a lot of respect, a lot of love from the women. And I bought into that lie. It was crazy. I thought all of that stuff the world was selling would make me feel good. All the sex in the world, all the money, all the drugs, none of it made me feel good. All the friends, none of that made me feel good. It was just a terrible way to live. And I lived that life for 20 years exactly.
So where did that life take you to? Just a couple instances or events?
Okay, so I didn't realize this. I would go back and forth in my mind from probably about 21 to 33 was when I got sober. So I would think, you got a problem? No, you don't got a problem. Because the reason why I hung out with people that could drink and use like me, because that would not expose, hey, you might be struggling, but you might be, you know what I mean? It's not normal what you're doing. So I guess subconsciously, that's why I would only hang around with people like that. But even throughout the years, being around people like that, I started to think sometimes, it was very short-lived in my mind. I never thought about it more than 5 seconds, to be honest. because my pride would kick in immediately. Nah, you're good, bro. You're good. You got to rest. That's all you got to rest. You just did a little, next time drink wine. Don't drink hard liquor or drink beer. You know what I mean? Don't do cocaine, do ecstasy. And I learned addiction that it's a progressive disease. Over any considerable period of time, we never get better. We only get worse. That is exactly what happened to me. I just got worse and worse and worse. So I didn't know what I was suffering from at all. So I'm like, I was from the Big Island. I was like, maybe if I leave, maybe the Big Island is the problem. That's probably what it is. All the people here, yeah. So let me move to Oahu. So I get one job in Waikiki. I was working valet at the Trump, actually, right down on Kalakaua. And I was working there for about 2 weeks maybe, or maybe a month at the very most. And the bellman just so happened, he comes to work one day and then he asked me if I party. I said, yeah, but I go out every once in a while. Then he goes, no, you party. He has a little fanny pack on. He had like a half ounce of cocaine on him.
Jesus.
I thought he was kidding because he was a funny guy. He was a jokester. And he said, no, here, just smell him. And I was like, okay. And I smelled it. I was like, oh, bro, you not kidding. So at that point, I was doing, in my mind, I was doing pretty good. I was only drinking. I was like, yes, yeah, I don't have a problem. I'm not doing any drugs. I've been here for 1 month. It's because I didn't meet anybody yet. You know what I mean? So I meet this guy and my disease just progressed rapidly. So I was a good worker. Like they should have fired me like long time ago. I would come to work. I don't know why. I'd party all night. I worked at 3 p.m. I partied all night, all the next day, right up until I got to go to work. For some reason, I went to work one time. I called off like 3-4 times maybe, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just showed up, and I was straight tweaking. I'm not even making sense. I'm sweating. I cannot stop moving, and everybody is laughing at me. Everybody's making fun of me. But cocaine, it's what it does. It suppresses your emotions. I couldn't get mad. I couldn't cry. I couldn't get sad. I couldn't yell. I couldn't fight. None of those things. So it wasn't until the next day that all hit me when I had to come back to work. The humiliation. And they're all looking at me. I'm walking in, they're looking at me and they're laughing and I just pissed me off. But not once did I think to myself, why this is happening to me? It's not because of them. It's because of the decisions I made.
Right.
And then so quick story. The next following weekend, it happens again. I'm like, okay, I cannot go to work now. I got to figure something out. I got to figure out some sort of excuse. I mean, my grandma died twice already. I used that one, like the same grandma died twice, So I was thinking, man, what am I going to do? So I was in a parking garage. It was about maybe 2 p.m. I worked at 3. A parking garage not too far away from where I work. And I was like, I got an idea. This is what I'm going to do. I decided to punch myself in my eye as hard as I could, as long as I could, as fast as I could, until it was swollen and it was like closed. So I took a picture of it. I sent my boss the picture. Now I got proof now. See, he's not lying. He's not lying. He can't. Okay, I see. But it's amazing the insane things that I have done. But the most insane thing I have ever done in my entire life is in a sober state of mind, I decide to drink and use, knowing exactly what's going to happen.
So what was the event that finally led you to have your moment of clarity where you're going, you know what? I can't keep doing this, so I need to do something.
Okay. So I end up, my mom, she had cancer like 4 times in her life. So she got it again. She wanted to get her treatment done up at UCSF hospital in San Francisco. My brother and my sister have been living in California for like 25 years. I was the only one in Hawaii. My brother's the oldest, my sister, and then me. So I was like, my mom was sick. She was the back end of the business. Me and my dad was the front end. It's like a bucket with a hole in it. We all putting the business in with my mom not there, just coming right back out. My dad decided to sell it. So I had no ties to Hawaii already. I was like, bro, I'm never going back. I'm never, ever going back because all I could see was the people I hurt, the women I used, all the drug dealers I owed money to, all the places I humiliated myself. I was like, I don't ever want to go back to Hawaii. So I decided to stay with my sister. My sister lives in Rancho Cucamonga. And but it's the problem though. Wherever I go, there I am. I never realized I was the problem. I figure, okay, Big Island was the problem. No, I'll go to Oahu. Okay, Oahu is the problem. Let me go to California now. So what happened was I got very good over this course of 20 years. I developed certain thinking patterns and behaviors. I got very good at lying, being deceiving, manipulating. I was so good. I had a master's degree in both of them, and so my sister and my brother, they never was in Hawaii. That's why they were gone for 25 years. So they never seen me, active in my addiction. So I get to my sister's house and my lies start compounding. Long story short, my sister, nobody has ever done this to me. So I came home late. I was supposed to be home at 8. I got home at 2. I sold my cell phone so I can go buy some cocaine. So she's trying to call me. She couldn't. Made up some lie about that. You know, my sister just kept pressing me until the truth finally came out. Now, once it came out, she didn't even believe me already. But because I was so afraid of, like, you know, I had so much pride, the shame, the guilt, the remorse, feeling like I'm going to be condemned. I was going to keep this secret, this deep, dark secret over here in the dark. I was not going to bring it out into the light. You know, it's, I always talk about this. Whenever I say this part of my story, you know, the feeling that ease and comfort drugs and alcohol gave me, that's the same feeling when my secret came from the dark to the light. Like in this building right here, when you guys first walked in, it's dark. When you guys turn on the lights, you guys ever notice how the darkness never fights with the light to stay dark? It's gone. That's exactly how I felt. And at that time, I was like, man, okay, now I can go seek help. Now I was all in now. I just needed that God just sent my sister to keep pressing me, to be honest, because I was praying for God to help me. And it came in the form of my sister not taking my lies and then believing me, basically. So I got into recovery that way. I tried to get into treatment. My brother helped me to apply for Covered California. I had no money already. I blew all my money, no nothing. So I called a bunch of treatment centers every day. No, we don't have a bed. Call tomorrow. And a week went by. I'm like, man, I feel like, I don't know, I might relapse. I might use, I might drink, I might do something. I got to figure something out. So I went to a recovery meeting, and basically the rest is history from there, you know.
And that was, you said 2017?
17, yeah. February 19th, yeah.
Congratulations.
I mean, I'm sorry, February 17th.
Congratulations.
That's amazing. So since then, now you're in recovery, you got a few years under your belt. What have you been doing?
So since I've been sober and been in recovery, something that recovery has taught me, because the disease of addiction stems from selfishness and self-centeredness, I never had the capacity to think about somebody else. It was never genuine. I always had this ulterior motive of, okay, if you got something like that I want, like I come off as being very kind. I was very good, very kind and generous and loving. And, you know, if I'm offering my services to somebody else, if I'm going to help you, it's because I want something back in return. It was never out of the kindness of my heart. You know, never was, because I just never had this disease was so, crazy in my life. I didn't know how to, like, I wanted to, I had the desire to, but I guess over the years of the repetition of lying, my mind literally changed to where I literally was a habitual liar. I would manipulate people. See, this is crazy. I would lie to you about what I ate for breakfast. I would lie to you I'm in a sober state of mind. I'm lying, you know? So it cannot be the drugs and alcohol. That's something recovery taught me, that, drugs and alcohol, it was just a symptom of my problem. It really wasn't the real problem. Because if you separate me from drugs and alcohol, I can still lie to you. I can still cheat on you. I can steal all your stuff. I can manipulate you into getting what I want. So I went into, I went in looking for sobriety. Then I found recovery, and I found there's a big difference between the two.
So how do you maintain your recovery?
For me personally, how I maintain my recovery is I stay connected to God. I stay connected to God. I stay connected to my brothers and sisters in recovery. I reach out to people daily. I have been doing this since the first day I got sober. Literally, where I'm calling people, I'm texting them, social media, meeting them in person. This is something that I always say this. I went to school, became a counselor in 2019. And I always say this, like when I run groups or throughout the whole time, I'm saying this. Everybody knows me for saying this, is that, the real work actually starts when you leave treatment. That's when the real work starts. I always highly, highly encourage people to get connected and stay connected. The common thread in every single person I've ever heard relapse, 100% of them has said, I disconnected from God. I disconnected from my family. I disconnected from, my brothers and sisters, in recovery. Disconnect, staying connected. But I heavily depend on God to keep me sober. If I depend on myself to be sober, I'll be like, hey boys, you want to go get a drink after this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm sure your business, Pro Recovery Power, also helps you maintain as well by providing services. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah,
How did
absolutely.
that come to be?
Sure. So again, recovery taught me this. It taught me how to think about you more than I think about myself. So in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, I started thinking, man, how can I be of service? How can I still help people? I mean, this is great. I'm at home all day with my wife. She's pregnant. I love this, but how can I still be of service to somebody else? So I started thinking, okay, I'll create a different page on Instagram. And I named it Pro Recovery Power. That's the first name that came to my mind, and I stuck with it. The reason why I named it that is because I'm much more pro recovery and I'm less anti-addiction. Because being anti-addiction, I'm problem focused, but I'm much more solution oriented today. And there's a lot of power in that. Pro Recovery Power. And then in my my logo that I created, the first P, that's the big island of Hawaii in it. And then there's the fist in the other P. So what it symbolizes is where I'm from and what I stand for. Because if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. That's something that I learned actually as like a teenager. I learned that in business. And so I started doing that. I created this platform to go live with other addicts, other alcoholics, people in recovery, people that went through treatment and they stayed sober, people that went through therapy and they stayed sober, people that went to church and stayed sober, people that God snapped his fingers and they stayed sober. To me, it doesn't matter how somebody got sober. If they once struggled with an addiction and they no longer do, I believe people need to hear about it, So I started making recovery clothing, YouTube page, website. I started hosting recovery meetings through Zoom on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. And it's a non-denominational meeting, all fellowships, all support groups, anybody's welcome, at this, because there's people that have been affected by the sufferer, by the alcoholic and the addict. And my wife's father, when she was 10, died from drugs and alcohol, and it still affects her and her family to this day.
Speaking along the lines of that, last week you and I were just chatting, just between the two of us. You mentioned there's a huge need in the state of Hawaii for treatment, for recovery, and then there's a big problem. Can you kind of break that down and kind of how that is looking right now?
Sure. So my mom died on March 16th of this year, 2021. I went back home. My whole family went back home for her service. She passed away up here in California. She was living with me. My mom and my dad was living with me and my wife when she was going through her chemotherapy and radiation. But ultimately, it took her life. So I go back to Hawaii. Her service was on May 1st. So this is the first time my wife can see it. It's the first time I ever told my story in my hometown, in like the little town hall. And my wife got to see how big the need is. I already knew about it. But then I've been home about 4 times since I've been sober. And every time I go, I see the same people doing the same thing. And I see people like, oh, hey, you hear about so-and-so? They're all strung out now. So-and-so went back to prison. So-and-so got divorced. And now they're doing drugs. They wasn't even doing drugs when I was living there. And all of the elders in the communities, I've seen them. I've talked with them. They said, Alika, we need your help. There's nothing going on. We need you. You answered prayer. I see, like, nobody had to tell me. I seen it with my own 2 eyes. However, I knew my wife never wanted to live in Hawaii. So while we were there, my wife got to see it. She said, babe, I think we should go to Hawaii and help these people. That's all I needed. I'm an action type person. I know how to pull the trigger. Even in my addiction, I wasn't a procrastinator, but now, I can think clearer. I've been sober for a while, and I've gained some wisdom. I'm not afraid to make decisions. I'm an action type person that has gotten me into trouble sometimes too, as well. I take action, then I think later sometimes.
I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah. So there's a big, huge need. They're like, man, there's no recovery, anything going on. And like people have been messaging me that I don't even know from Hawaii, because I also started, I started almost a year ago. I got my nonprofit and I got my for-profit. I'm a sober mentor. The name of my LLC is called Abundant Recovery Services. And I work with people through Zoom in person, but I have gotten some clients from the state of Hawaii, because the thing I have over somebody like from the mainland is I look like them. I talk like them. I got the same tattoos as them.
You can relate.
Yeah, I'm super relatable, So I think that makes me a lot more effective. And I'm so, no amount of water can put out this fire burning in me for recovery and helping other people, that's struggling with addiction.
What you just said is exactly why we do this show. So you said earlier, if somebody's found success in recovery, people need to hear about it. That's what we do with this show. We've had every walk of life come through. And then to your point, the reason why you're able to relate to Hawaii is because you're from Hawaii. We have listeners from Hawaii. And I'm sure when they see you on here, they're going to go, hey, that's my cousin. That's my brother. Chances are it's probably one of your cousins.
I know.
But with that being said, that's the exact reason why people need to tell their stories, especially when they find the success, because that success lead to further actions, not for just that person, but others. So you say you're a man of action. For, let's say, we'll keep it to Hawaii.
Okay.
For people in Hawaii that are listening to us right now, what is one thing that you can recommend that they do right now to better their well-being?
Okay, so if you identify as a drug addict, as an alcoholic, you think maybe you do have a problem, something that I always suggest is to take massive action. Because if you identify as a drug addict, as an alcoholic, we're not a stranger to taking action. We know how to take action. It's literally the same amount of energy, just in a different direction. That's all it is. But there's a lot of different barriers that maybe need to be broken down before that happens, because there could be a lot of shame. What if it's a secret? Like how in my case, it was a secret. Or it's not a secret, but it could be being shame onto the family. Maybe I don't care, but my family, they're really, no, they want to protect their image or whatever it is, something like that. But taking action has never, ever, ever, ever failed me one time. It has always bettered my life. But of course, there's fear, there's a bunch of different things that will prevent us. Pride, fear is a big one though. Fear is huge, but honestly, that's something that I always say to people because we know how to hound the dope man at all hours of the night. We know how to do that.
Right.
We know how to drive 1 hour to get, half a gram, you know what I mean? Then go home, then go back another hour to get another gram, It's like, you just buy the whole 8 ball one time,
So the actions are there, you're saying, just need to change them and basically change the direction of those actions.
Correct.
Because people are already putting in the energy. Now it's time to put in that energy for something positive and actually good for you.
Correct. That's kind of like what I do with my mentorship program. Basically, just helping people, guiding them this way, basically. There's a lot more to it than that, but to kind of sum it up, that's really what I do. I'm a guide, I'm a consultant. I'm not their dad. I'm not their coach. I don't tell people what to do. I believe if somebody has struggled and has been addicted to drugs and alcohol, the last thing they need is somebody telling them what to do, because we're so defiant. We have bold resistance against authority. I think my mentor, he has never, ever told me what to do, literally. And I believe that's why it has been so effective for me, because nobody made me drink and use drugs and nobody made me recover. I became willing to do both. So I'm literally a guide. Of course, I got some suggestions. I will give directions and things like that. But it's not, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that. No. I don't want to feel like I'm threatening people's free will. That's why.
And that's where all the pride comes from, because then you can say it was all on me. I did it all myself.
Exactly. That's such a good point you made, bro.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I missed their recovery. Look at me. And I forgot, God had a big part to play in this.
Sure, there's a lot of people that go into it, but no. Well, speaking, I kind of want to bring it all the way back to the beginning real quick. You said you grew up wanting to be a husband and a father. Mm-hmm. Did you become that?
Absolutely, bro.
Great.
Yeah.
So you accomplished the goal then.
I did. I actually met my wife. I was about 4 to 6 months sober, right around there, pretty early on. And it was suggested not to do that. But, I'm like, hey, don't put no limits on my God. You know what I mean? But, we ended up getting married. 10 months later, actually, we got married. And we just had a baby. We had a son. His name is Alika Gambill. And he just turned 1. He's 13 months old. He's 14 months old almost. And, but I believe God needed to do some spiritual surgery on me. I believe his grace and his mercy, because I was wanting this. I was praying for it. But if he gave it to me, he allowed it to happen to me, active in my addiction, I would have destroyed everything. The kids not going to like me anymore. They're going to hate me. I'm going to get divorced. I'll probably kill myself, So God can see things I cannot see. And that's the thing I love about my mentor or my mentors that I have, because I can only see me like this. They can see me from a 360-degree angle. They can see things in me I do not see. And I believe that's why it's so important to growth, whether it's, growing along spiritual lines or growing in our fitness and our mental health. It's so, even finances, advisors, different people, in different areas of my life to help me, because there is a life after addiction. My life started when I got sober. That's when it really started. It wasn't like sobriety wasn't the goal. Like, hey, I'm sober. I'll just kind of live a regular life. That's okay if people want to do that. But for me, I believe God put this call in my life. He gave me this purpose to fulfill, and nothing will stop me from carrying this message to other people that are suffering out there.
Man, that's powerful.
Awesome.
So we're running out of time here, but wanted to share with our viewers, if they want to get in touch with you, learn more about you, learn more about your counseling, or get some advice, where can they find you?
Well, you guys can find me. Well, first off, on my my nonprofit, we have a website. It's just prorecoverypower.com. We're on social media. I have my own personal account as well that I promote abundant recovery services, and it's just Alika Gambill. They're both on all social media platforms. I'm most active on Instagram though, just so you guys know. And that's where you guys can get a hold of me. So. But I really appreciate you guys, man. You guys it's amazing. It's like you're like us, you guys got such a passion and such a heart for helping people struggling. Typically you find that in somebody like me, like you guys, like in Jody Barber, bro. Psh, man, I love that lady.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Is absolutely amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing story, and I'm still processing the whole thing. There's just so much to take in, and not only that, but I mean, the people on YouTube, when you're watching this, you can see the amount of energy just radiating off of you. Yeah. It's crazy. So thank you for everything that you do in the recovery community, and helping people that are struggling and being an open ear. I know there are a lot of people that need it, especially now and more than ever. So that's all we have. Thank you, Ryan, for filling in.
You got it.
Thank you, me, for filling in. Jason Hillary, we'll see you next week.